first off, we're going to show you 2 level 20 dungeons. And the first part we're going to show you, this is just going to be a fly through the dungeon, right? It's Kelvaroth, level 20 dungeon, and we're going to show you the size and the scope of our dungeons. And you just get a feel. One of the cool things about our dungeons is we actually do a blend of structures and terrain, which allows us to put together our dungeons much faster than normal. But they also allows us to keep this epic, this large, grand feel to it, right? And as it flies through there, I'm actually going to talk about something totally unrelated to what you're seeing, and it's going to be the basics of WildStar combat. One of the first things I want to describe is telegraphs. If you aren't familiar with telegraphs, essentially imagine I'm putting a red decal beneath my feet right now, and what the game's doing right there is saying a creature or an object is about to hit that area you're at really, really hard, really, really soon, and you don't want to be there. I'm actually going to use this as a chance to step out of the red telegraph and turn the volume down just a little bit more. There we go. And right now the creature's hitting in that area and doing damage to nobody because I'm not there anymore. So one of the reasons it's important is because we start teaching you this at level 1. And we start training you over these first 20 levels before you get to these dungeons. And by the time you get to level 20, it should almost be instinct, right? Something places a red decal in front of you. I know, hey, don't be here. And we slowly just ingrain this into your playstyle and getting you ready for this group content. So one thing I should say about our dungeons is it is five people to a dungeon. We expect you to group up with 5 players, and we do embrace the Holy Trinity. Now, for those of you who don't know what the Holy Trinity is simple. You have a tank, you have a healer, and you have some DPS, right? Tank, he's built to absorb damage, to keep everybody aggro on him. The healer keeps everybody alive, mostly the tank if we're doing our jobs right. And the DPS, their job is to kill stuff, do lots of damage. So, we're about to see, this is Trogan, the final guy of Kelvaroth. So we're going to let him do his little cameo here before we go to Stormtalon. We're actually going to show you all the major boss fights from Stormtalon. I'm going to walk you through some of the mechanics and how we've trained the player from level 1 through level 10 to level 20 to be prepared for what they're about to experience. One of the cool things our artists do as they're building our dungeons is they think about stuff like giving you views to deeper into the dungeon. Right? So right now, as we go around the corner to the first boss, we actually have a window here. And this is a window of the final boss fight room. You're going to see stuff happening down there that you're eventually going to get to. So now we're arriving at our first boss. He's literally right around the corner after you do that first fight. So one of the things we like to do is make sure that these last somewhere between 45 minutes to an hour and 15 minutes, depending on the skill level of the player. And we want to make sure that you don't go too long without a boss fight. We want to keep the excitement level pretty high. We don't want you trudging through lots of base pop pulls. We want you to have lots of fun fights to do. So in this case, it's the Invoker. And what you're about to see right now is a telegraph. That's what I've been talking about. And notice how everybody instinctively gets out of it, right? One of the reasons I really like telegraph system is the messaging, right? We teach you early on, hey, this is bad, don't get in it. And then anytime we use it after that, doesn't matter the size, the shape, or where we put it, players already understand, hey, I don't want to be there, which solves a lot of frustration problems for us. In other fights I've seen, it's very, very hard for the designer to message all the mechanics that are going to be happening. And the telegraph system gives us an easy tool to message a lot of the more complex mechanics. In this case, we're showing something new to the player they've never seen before. Up until now, telegraph details have been pretty static, right? They don't move. In this case, watch. It actually follows the player for a period of time before it actually stamps down to the ground. So we've taught you, hey, get out of the red. Now the red's following you. Oh, now the red stops and I can get out. So it kind of changed up the gameplay a little bit there. And one of the cool things we can do now is you can actually drag that decal. If you're my enemy, I could drag this decal on top of you, let it stamp down, and then walk away and watch the damage hit you instead of me. So as this fight goes on, you'll notice that we're slowly ramping up the intensity of the room. So players, I can drop any level 20 WildStar player into this thing. They don't even have to ever see the fight before, and they're going to understand instinctively what's going on here. Because the red, don't stand in the red, stay out of the red. So now, we're ramping up the intensity like I said. Now we have lots of moving telegraphs, something else the player hasn't seen yet. So it's their first dungeon experience, and now we cast a more complex telegraph on top of that, right? So as long as the player's instincts have been trained over the last 20 levels, they should be ready for this. Now it's just a matter of executing, right? I know exactly what I need to do as a player, so I'm not frustrated about what should I be doing, why did I die? I'm more focused on, hey, I have all these abilities to move me, such as double tap to dash, or whatever you decide to keybind it to. That dashes you to a certain direction, left, right, forward, or backwards. You want to get in these safe spots. You also have shift to sprint like a first-person shooter, which is bound to an endurance bar, so you can't sprint forever, but you do have sprint. And then we have lots of player abilities that actually move you. Spellslinger has an ability called Gate. Moves me forward 10 meters, stuns everything in my path. The warrior has Leap. He leaps to a target or to a direction. You can use all these to avoid the red or move through the red or even stun the target before he has a chance to cast it. So by this time, the players have gotten to the groove. They understand that, hey, all the moving red, I just need to, as long as I avoid all this, I'm not going to take damage at all. And they're able to take down Invoker. So that is most likely going to be WildStar's players' first dungeon 5-man boss experience. And if we've done our job right, which we have, they should be already trained to handle this moment. Now Aether is here, he's a storm elemental. He has tornadoes, lightning, all sorts of stuff, right? And his fight is actually another important part in the character's training, right? This is the first time players are actually really required to interact with the system we call interrupt armor. And we touched a little bit upon that in the CC video a couple minutes ago. But in this case, I'm going to go into a little bit more depth. The reason we created interrupt armor is because every single class in WildStar, by level 4, has some form of CC. And since we have 5 players here, if we allowed each player to CC Aetheros, Aetheros probably wouldn't do anything, because we'd all chain it, right? We'd make sure he can't do anything. It's also not fun for us to make it so Aetheros can't be stunned or CC'd in any manner. So instead, we create a system we call interrupt armor. And what that does is it shields him from CC effects. So in this case, he has 2. So if you were to stun Aetheros, it would decrement it by 1, but the stun wouldn't affect him. And if you were to stun him afterwards, he'd go down to 0, but still wouldn't be stunned. So we'd require a 3rd stun or 3rd CC to actually break through this and bring him down and prevent him from casting a spell. And like I said, this is the first time we're actually really requiring players to interact with the system. And what's happening right now is Aetheros vanished, summoned some help, now he's back, he's going to whisk everybody away, and now he's going to start casting a powerful spell, right? And create a gauntlet. So it's going to take him 20 seconds to finish this spell. If he finishes this spell, players are most likely going to die. So our players have to navigate through this gauntlet of tornadoes and lightning. And they all have to time their stuns right about the same time to bring him down, prevent him from casting that spell. Now, since this is the first time you're introduced to interrupt armor, or expected to interact with it, we give it about a 5-second window. It takes him 20 seconds to cast the spell. What I mean by a 5-second window is that if you stun him first, okay, the 5-second window starts. Then we need 2 more stuns within that 5-second window to prevent him from casting that spell. Later on, as players get used to the system, we might shorten that window. It's easy for us to change just on a per creature basis. But for Aetheros, we like to go pretty high because it's the first time you're seeing it. So now they should be killing Aetheros any second now. There we go. And we actually get to see the final boss fight. And like I said, that was the first time we've actually required you to interact with interrupt armor. But now that we have taught you that, if you've gotten past this boss fight, we expect you to start using this more frequently. This is the incubator. This is the entire reason you were sent over here. The Pell are trying to give birth to Storm Talon through the incubator. Storm Talon's this giant beast that they would consider a god. They kind of worship him. So the High Priest is about to summon him, and you get to see one of our cinematic experiences. The cinematics team that does the Dev Speaks and the WildStar Flicks that y'all see, they're the same team that does this. And it's all in-game. And the cool thing about this is we're just taking control of your camera and moving it for you, right? At any point I can hit escape, go back to my character, and I'm seeing this event play out in real time in the game. So remember how I said interrupt armor is going to be very important? From the get-go, it's very important in this fight. Because what's going to happen here in a couple seconds, he's going to knock all the players back. They're going to get a breakout gameplay experience, where they're going to have to break out of the stun. At the same time, he's going to start collapsing a telegraph around the room. And as he casts a spell, it's collapsing in, everybody's running in, he has interrupt armor, so they're all going to time their CCs at the same time, prevent him from actually enclosing the entire room. So, they were able to overcome that, but also at the same time, throughout the fight, his scales are becoming energized. And once he's fully energized, he's going to have to unleash this energy on the players. So, he's going to rear up on his hind legs here, to start channeling lightning bolts at random targets throughout the room. And that's going to actually maintain, there's going to be persistent red decals. They do dissipate over time, but this creates a changing dynamic environment that I might have to avoid going forward. And then finally, he has an ability we call Lightning Rod. And this, he actually creates a telegraph on a certain player with a safe area around them. What happens then is that you guys, if he creates it on me, have to move into my safe area. But at the same time, Storm Talon's casting a lightning bolt on me, which means I have to move to stay alive, which means y'all have to move with me. So it's the same old messaging, the same thing we've taught the player over the last 20 levels, but it's new, and that a new way for us to use this. So this time, he's actually choosing the warrior, which is lucky for this group, because warrior, he's your tank. High armor, high resist, high HP. He's not even going to bother moving. He's like, hit me with your lightning bolts. I can take them, which makes it really easy for the rest of the group. So they're just DPSing him during this part. So that was just lucky on their part. And this time, he's actually going to choose that Chua Spellsinger in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. Spellsingers barely have any armor at all, no resist. And so he's not going to be able to take the lightning bolts. So he's going to start moving to the left. And one thing we've done, when we first started playing Storm Talon, when we first created him like this, it was chaotic in that, we knew what we had to do. We knew we had to stay in the safe area, and we knew the person in the safe area had to move, to stay alive. But we found a hard time, we had a hard time because we were still inexperienced, staying with the player. So we started communicating with each other. And we say, hey, if you're the subject of Lightning Rod, you need to move counterclockwise. And you need to be close enough to Storm Talon so the DPSers can continue DPSing even while we're moving. So it's just another layer. As we learned to fight, we became better and better at it. But the nice thing about it is that it's still using the same telegraph system. So we instinctively knew what to do from the get-go. We just had to figure out a way to execute upon it.